Welcome to Echoes Beyond Ink. Here we attempt to explore the transformative power of words, words that evoke emotions and weave magic into our lives. Today we are reading A Winter's Night. This is written by Munshi Premchand. Born Dhanpat Rai Srivastav, Munshi Premchand is renowned for his profound narratives that often spotlight strong female characters and tackle pressing societal issues. A Winter's Night is a heartfelt exploration of suffering and resilience, capturing the struggles of rural life with remarkable depth and empathy. This story was originally written in Hindi and is translated from that language. Today we are reading the translated version in English. In Hindi, the title of the story is Ek Poos Ki Raat. Halku came in and said to his wife, "Sahana is here. Please give me the money. I'll pay the dues and get rid of him." Muni was sweeping the floor. She turned around and said, "We are left with 3 rupees. If you would give the last of our money, then how would we buy a blanket? How would you guard the crop in the cold nights of winter? Go and tell him that we would clear our dues during the harvest season. We don't have any money now." Halku was in a dilemma. The month of Poos, which is the month of October, was coming. It was the peak of winter, and it would be impossible to sleep in the open without a blanket. But he knew that Sahana won't agree. He would threaten and abuse him. It was better to face the winters without a blanket and get rid of this trouble now. Thinking along these lines and carrying his heavy weight that disproved the meaning of his name, Halku in Hindi means lightweight. He went to his wife and persuaded her, "Please give me the money. At least let us get rid of him. I promise to arrange some money for the blanket through other means." Muni moved away from him and said with arching eyes, "I know about your other means. Please explain it in detail. Would someone donate a blanket to you? I have no idea how much more we owe him. There is no end to it. Why don't you stop tilling the land? Toil hard and kill yourself, and then hand over the harvest to him, and that shall be the end. It seems like we are born to be buried under debts. We will serve as a labor to fill our stomach. Tillage is of no use to us. I won't give any money. No, I won't." Halku sadly replied, "So you want me to silently face his abuses?" Muni said in an agonizing tone, "Who gave him the right to abuse you? Is he the king?" But the moment she uttered these words, her taut eyebrows got lowered. The bitter truth in Halku's words seemed to be a fierce animal that was staring at her. She went up to the niche of the wall, took out the money and placed it in Halku's hands. While handing him the money, she said, "You must stop tilling the land from now on. Our daily labor is enough to feed us peacefully, without being browbeaten. What's the use of tilling? We earn something by hard labor and then put that money into this fire as well. And on top of that, we have to face such continuous bullying." Halku took the money and walked towards the door as if he was handing over his heart to Sahana. He had saved these 3 rupees with much difficulty, by saving bit by bit from his daily wages, in order to buy a blanket. But today, he was about to lose his hard-earned money. With every step, he sank deeper under the weight of his helplessness. A wintry night of Poos. Even the stars of the sky seemed to be shivering through the cold. Halku was lying on the edge of his field, under the shelter of sugarcane leaves, on a bamboo cot with a thick cotton sheet wrapped around him. He was shaking with cold, while his pet dog Jabra was whining under the cot with his mouth pushed into his stomach. Neither of them was able to sleep. Halku fixed his knees into his neck and said, "Hey Jabra, are you cold? I had told you to sleep on the straw bed at home, but you followed me out here. Now you shall too face the biting cold. I am helpless. Now you have to repent for your faithfulness." Jabra wagged his tail, and after a long whine, he yawned and became quiet. Perhaps Jabra's mind guessed that his master was unable to sleep due to his repeated cries. Halku took out his hand and caressed the cold body of Jabra and said, "Don't come with me tomorrow. Otherwise, you might freeze to death. These strong west winds are bringing the wintry iciness with them. I must fill another chillum in order to pass this night somehow. I have already smoked 8 chillums. This is the only pleasure I get of being a peasant." There are some fortunate people who drive away from the cold by wrapping themselves around thick quilts, sheets and blankets. The cold does not even dare to come near them. Such strangeness of life. We, the peasants, labor hard while others enjoy at our cost. Halku got up and filled his chillum with the cinder from the pit. Jabra also stood up. While smoking his chillum, Halku said to Jabra, "Would you like to have some chillum? It does not drive away the cold, but only relaxes your mind." Jabra looked at Halku with eyes that were overflowing with love. "Halku, just face the cold for tonight. Tomorrow I shall put the straw bed here for you. When you sit on it, you won't feel cold." Jabra placed his legs on Halku's knees and brought his mouth near Halku's mouth. Halku could feel his warm breath. After smoking the chillum, Halku lay down. But whenever he decides to fall asleep, the next moment his body starts to shiver. He twisted on his sides, but could not drive away the cold. No matter what he did, the cold did not leave his body like an evil spirit. Unable to drive away the cold, he tenderly lifted up Jabra, patted his head, and made him sleep in his lap. The dog was stinking badly, but holding the animal close to his body gave him a feeling of peaceful satisfaction. Jabra was perhaps feeling that heaven was right here, and Halku's pure soul had not a trace of loathing towards the dog. He would have embraced his friend or brother in a similar manner. He was no longer hurt by the abject plight that had landed him in this situation. No, this unique friendship had opened the doors of his spirit, and every pore of his being was shining brightly. Suddenly Jabra heard the footsteps of an animal. This special affection had ignited an enthusiasm in him. Seemingly unaffected by the cold breeze, he came out of the shed and started barking. Halku tried to cajole him to return, but Jabra kept on barking. He would return for a moment and then go back at once. Protecting Halku was his duty, and this was jumping out of his heart like an unsatisfied desire. Another hour had passed. The night began to trigger the draughts of cold wind. Halku sat up, brought his legs closer to his chest, and then hid his head in them. But still, there was no respite from the biting cold. It seemed that all the blood in his body had frozen and ice flowed through his veins. He looked up at the sky to ascertain the remaining time left for the night to pass. The Saptarishi constellation was still halfway up. Saptarishi is the name of the Great Bear constellation, or the Ursa Major. It consists of 7 bright stars arranged in a pattern that resembles a big bear. Once the constellation reaches directly above his head, it will be morning. More than 1/4 of the night was still left. There was a mango orchard near Halku's field. The leaves of the tree had started to fall. A heap of dry leaves had gathered in the orchard. Halku thought of collecting the leaves and lighting a fire to get rid of his biting cold. But he thought that if someone saw him gathering leaves at this hour, people might consider him as a ghost. There is also a possibility of some wild animal hiding in the heap. Nevertheless, he decided to gather the leaves as the cold was becoming intolerable. He went to the neighboring arhar field, uprooted some stalks and tied them together to make a broom. Arhar is the Hindi name for yellow lentils. He took a piece of smouldering dung cake in his hand and walked towards the orchard. Jabra saw him and came to him wagging his tail. Halku said, "It is impossible to stand the cold anymore, Jabru. Let us go to the orchard, collect some leaves and burn them to warm ourselves. Once we do that, we shall come back and sleep here. The night is still a long way." Jabra droned to express his agreement and started walking towards the orchard. The orchard was dark, the cruel wind was mercilessly trampling upon the leaves, and the dewdrops were continuously dripping from the trees. All of a sudden, the wind brought a waft of the fragrance of henna flowers. Halku said, "What a fine smell it is, Jabru. It must have tickled your nose as well." But Jabru had found a bone in the field and was busy gnawing at it. Halku placed the smouldering piece on the ground and started gathering the leaves. In a few minutes, a big heap of leaves was created. His hands were stiff with cold and his feet were bare. He raised a mountain of leaves and decided to burn it to escape the biting cold. The fire was lit, and in a few moments the flames leapt up and touched the leaves of the tree above it. In the unsteady brightness of the fire, the trees of the orchard seemed to carry the unbounded darkness in their heads. In this limitless sea of darkness, this light appeared to be a rocking boat. Halku was sitting in front of the fire, warming himself. Soon he took off his cotton sheet, tucked it to his side, and spread out his legs as if challenging the cold. Do what you can. After conquering the infinite power of cold, it was not possible for him to repress his triumph. He said to Jabra, "Hey Jabra, are you still feeling cold?" Jabra whined. "Why didn't we think of this before? Hadn't this idea struck my mind, we would have suffered so much." Jabra wagged his tail. "Come on, let's jump over this fire and see who can cross over it. But do remember, son, in case you burn yourself, I won't be able to provide any kind of treatment." Jabra looked at the fire with frightened eyes. "Don't say anything about it to Munni, otherwise she would argue with me." Saying this, he jumped over the fire in a single swift. The flames touched his feet, but without any harm. Jabra only circled around the fire and then came and stood beside him. Halku said, come on, that is not right. You must jump over it." Saying this, he jumped over the fire again and came to the other side. The leaves had burnt out. The orchard was once again in darkness. The fire was reduced to embers, which the wind occasionally ruffled, and then it would again fall under the ashes. Halku wrapped himself with the cotton sheet, sat beside the warm ashes and began humming a song. His body had grown warm, but the moment cold rose over him, laziness suppressed it. Jabru barked loudly and ran towards the field. Halku felt that a herd of animals, maybe nilgais, Indian antelope, had invaded the field. The noise of their running and tramping around was clearly heard. It seemed like they were grazing in the field, as the sound of munching became more evident. He mumbled to himself, "No, when Jabra is around, no animal can dare enter the field. He would bite them away. I must be imagining things. I was surely mistaken." He shouted loudly, "Jabra, Jabra!" But Jabra kept on barking and did not return back to him. Then he again heard the sounds of grazing. It was impossible for him to ignore it now. Waking up after settling in a comfortable position, was a torture to him. The thought of chasing away the animals in this bitter cold seemed unbearable to him. Thus, he did not budge. He shouted loudly, "Lee-ho! Lee-ho! Lee-ho!" Jabra barked again. The animals were ruining the field. The harvest was completely ready, and this year was going to be a good harvest. But these rowdy animals were bent on destroying it. Halku got up and walked a few steps. Suddenly, the wind, biting like the sting of a scorpion, hit him, and he was forced to return to the dying fire and scour through the ashes to make his body warm. While Jabra was barking himself hoarse, the Nilgais were devouring the field, and Halku was sitting beside the warm ashes with calm resignation. Listlessness had bound him from all sides. He covered himself in a sheet and went to sleep on the warm ground. When he woke up in the morning, the sun was shining brightly, and Munni was waking him up. "You came here and slept, and there the whole field has been destroyed." Halku woke up and said, "Have you been to the field?" She said, "Yes, all the crops have been ruined." "Who sleeps like this? What was the use of camping here all night?" Halku quickly reeled off an excuse. "Here I was dying with such a severe stomachache, and you're bothered about the crops." Both walked up to their field. They saw that the whole crop was trampled upon, and Jabra was lying under the shed almost lifeless. Both of them looked at their field. While Munni was sad, Halku was happy. Munni replied anxiously, "Now we shall have to work as labourers to pay off the tax." Halku replied, "So what? At least I won't have to sleep here on a cold night." Thank you for listening to this story. If you've liked the story, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me. Thank you.